Thank you so much for joining us. It has been a busy week. Zelensky and Netanyahu met with Trump. We saw the incredible headline, Kash Patel loses lawsuit against man who called him googly-eyed chud, which I think means that's his legal name now. And this happened.
The chase for the squirrel is on, and the squirrel is in the corner, and the squirrel is still eluding an entire horde of grounds crew members. And the squirrel's free once again. Hemmed in? No, I won't be hemmed in. I have freedom on my mind. Trying to go between the legs, and eventually he gets away again and hops through the towel and hops through another towel.
OK, I think from now on, every baseball game should probably just be a bunch of adults trying to trap a squirrel with a towel. And credit to that announcer for narrating that like it was the Odyssey. It takes vision to see a squirrel evading a grounds crew and to shout, "I have freedom on my mind!" Sadly, that squirrel was eventually caught, but by the top of the 8th inning, the Tigers' mascot was holding up a sign saying, "Free the squirrel," which is excellent, and it's a sign that we might actually have to borrow soon if Buc-ee's comes for our Mr. Nutter Butter merch. Still available, by the way, until it legally isn't. Meanwhile, America's Cyclospora outbreak continues to spread.
The CDC says 4 more states, Illinois, Kansas, Oklahoma, and Pennsylvania, are linked to that spike in cyclosporiasis cases across a total of 9 states caused by shredded iceberg lettuce sourced by Taylor Farms. Nearly 2,000 people in those states got sick after eating the lettuce at Taco Bell, which has removed all affected products. But that is just a fraction of the record-breaking nearly 12,000 potential cases of this parasite nationwide, and that number is expected to go up. So if you're eating at a restaurant, it is recommended you ask the source of their lettuce, or you eat cooked vegetables instead for now.
Yeah, the best advice they have for you right now is to basically play lettuce detective at every restaurant. And what are you really expecting them to say? "Oh, shit, we actually get it from Sam's Parasite Barn. We were hoping no one would ask." Because let's be honest, your server doesn't know where the restaurant sources their lettuce. Their main concern is that the bartender they fucked last week stopped working Mondays, and their manager won't release next month's schedule unless everyone goes to a poetry night. So why not give them all a break and just order soup? Now, if you haven't got cyclosporiasis, the symptoms are unpleasant, to say the least.
It gives you, and I'm sorry to have to say this, debilitating, explosive diarrhea that can last for weeks.
I wasn't feeling well. The pain in my stomach was, like, unbearable.
Immediately had to sprint to the bathroom. It was horrible.
For the people saying, "Oh, I want to get the parasite, I want to lose weight." No, you don't.
Yeah, of course you don't. Nobody should be looking at the people who pooped so weird that they made it onto the news and think, "Should have been me." An epidemiologist even described the symptoms as, "It's uncontrollable and it's very liquid." If you've seen pictures from cholera wars where the patients are on gurneys and the gurney has a hole where your butt goes and there's a bucket underneath the hole, it's very similar. And no offence, but I don't think that epidemiologist should be allowed to give statements anymore. We were looking for something like, "It'll cause digestive issues," not, "Taco Bell made American shit so hard and wet, they need assless beds like a 19th century poop ward." It is no wonder Taco Bell visits briefly dropped by nearly a third, and the company has gone out of its way to try and reassure people.
We actually have a statement from Taco Bell that they put out not long ago saying, "We want you to hear it from us. We take your health and safety seriously and have removed all affected Taylor Farms lettuce from Taco Bell stores. So go ahead and enjoy your Taco Bell today. You always got us. We always got you. See you in the drive-thru."
No, you fucking won't! And there is truly no more efficient way to say that there is a nationwide diarrhea epidemic than the phrase, "We have a statement from Taco Bell." Because it's never going to be good news. It's never going to be, "We have a statement from Taco Bell. They found Amelia Earhart. She's 129 and she's housing a crunch wrap. She just lost track of time." But it's not just a Notes app non-apology. To win customers back, Taco Bell's even been offering $1 deals for certain menu items that don't contain any lettuce, like this enchilada, which looks like a murdered burrito dying in a pool of its own blood, and this Mexican pizza, which looks like a plate of nachos that studied abroad in Rome for 6 months and now calls itself pizza. And look, I will give Taco Bell credit for one thing. They proactively addressed this problem. And to be fair, Cyclospora is hard to track. And as we've talked about before, the FDA's been underfunded for decades now. But this second Trump administration has somehow managed to make a bad situation significantly worse.
In President Trump's second term, the FDA has lost about 20% of its staff. The CDC is down 25%. The CDC used to have 11 scientists tracking food parasites. Now it's 3.
Wait, only 3 people now? That is clearly not enough. It really feels like we shouldn't be able to fit the CDC's entire parasite tracking team comfortably onto a porch glider. Look, as we have said before, a good public health system is one you don't notice. A bad one makes headlines. And boy, are we seeing that right now. And meanwhile, Secretary of Health and Human Services Robert Kennedy, or as his friends call him, has tried to reassure people, but just the day after he claimed the Cyclospora outbreak was under control, the FDA announced it was investigating a new outbreak, with cases only growing since. And look, clearly, none of this is ideal, and it does say something pretty grim about America. That when it comes to acting swiftly to prevent a public health threat, the current government just lost the moral high ground to fucking Taco Bell. But since they seem to be in the mood to make amends to their customers right now, we figured the very least that we could do is help them out.
Hey, America. We at Taco Bell want you to know we care about your health and safety. That's right. The inventors of Fiery Doritos Locos Tacos care about your physical well-being. So we're here to say, we're sorry. We're going to live contrito, which is how our Chihuahua would say sorry if he hadn't died rushing the cockpit on 9/11. We know that because of our food, many of you have been shitting your brains out in a way that we never intended. Because Taco Bell's always prided itself on 2 things: having the wettest food in America and only giving you the regular, normal level of diarrhea. That's why we've temporarily removed lettuce from our food. So while you're powering through our Mexican food adjacent menu, including our, Jesus Christ, sausage Crunchwrap Supreme, you can feel confident that you're avoiding one narrow definition of gastrointestinal disease. Again, we're not promising you won't get regular diarrhea from us. I mean, you've seen our food, right? Now, there's something on the menu called Diablo Dusted Chicken Nuggets, okay? We're just saying, we'll try not to give you the kind of diarrhea that'll put you on the news. And if that's not enough, then frankly, that's on you, big guy, for eating something called the beefy potato loaded griller. And you expected not to shit your pants? Taco Bell. Where else are you gonna go when you're drunk? Fucking Wendy's? Get the fuck out of here.
Moving on. Our main story tonight concerns surveillance. You know, the thing that this pervert does all year long. He sees you when you're sleeping, he knows when you're jacking it to the Gilded Age. Specifically, we're going to look at police surveillance technology. It takes many forms, from cameras to facial recognition to even this.
The robot itself was given the name HP RoboCop for Huntington Park. It's, rather a futuristic piece of equipment that essentially is a sophisticated, current-time, high-definition camera system.
Please help keep the park clean.
So initially, there was some negative sort of reaction to the robot. The robot was vandalized and it was tipped over.
Yeah, of course it was, because look at it. It's a glorified Roomba that knocks. And did you hear its voice there? I didn't think it was possible to create a dweebier robot than this virgin, but enter stage left, the police egg. It's got the body of a weeble and the voice of a hall monitor, and it's okay for me to say that because same. The police love using surveillance tech, and in recent years, the prevalence of local mass surveillance systems has exploded thanks to cheaper technology and increased funding from the federal government. And this all tends to get presented as a boon to public safety. Local news loves to cover cities' real-time crime centres. Here's a story about one in Las Vegas. Here is one in Detroit. And here's one in Cooper City, Florida. And in that story, the town's then mayor offered this upbeat assessment.
Everyone is being watched. And if you're doing nothing wrong, doesn't matter what you're doing. But when you're doing something wrong, we're going to find out. We're going to have the wherewithal to come and get you. We've got essentially Big Brother on steroids.
OK. I'm not sure that's quite the sell he seems to think it is. For one thing, Big Brother is pretty famously not the hero of 1984. But the truth is, a lot of the technologies that feed into those centres have significant problems, from civil liberties issues to the way that more recently they've been weaponised to target immigrants. And it feels like we're now at a point where there needs to be much more awareness of what is actually out there. So given that, tonight, we thought we'd do something a bit different and try to give you a field guide for some of the most common surveillance tools, specifically cameras, microphones, licence plate readers, cell site simulators, and the practice of predictive policing that combines all of them to make that Big Brother on steroids line true in all the worst ways. And let's start with cameras. You've undoubtedly seen police surveillance cameras all over the place, and the case for them is pretty simple. Here is a police officer in New Orleans where cops have access to over 2,000 cameras pitching the upside.
We had a shooting at this very intersection, like 4:30 in the morning, of the gentleman that got shot, claimed to be the victim. We watched the video surveillance, went back, and it showed that he was actually shooting at the young man first. So it kind of, helped us exonerate the guy we were looking for.
And if you didn't have the camera, do you think you would have known the truth?
No, absolutely not.
Really? Because if that's true, that sounds less like an argument for cameras than it is an argument against you. Because you basically just admitted there we couldn't do dick all until we got them video doodads. But the thing is, police don't just use cameras to find evidence of something that happened. They can also use them to fish for crimes that they think might. Essentially, using them as a digital form of stop and frisk. Staying in New Orleans, take the case of Michael Celestine, who police there accosted after they watched him walking around in a puffy jacket. You can see them zoom the camera in on him and track his movements for 15 minutes. And their justification for doing that is that they claim he had a suspicious bulge in his jacket, which is already a weird thing to be on the lookout for in a state which allows for concealed carry. But an even weirder thing to do in the whole idea behind puffer jackets is that they bulge. It is quite literally the puff part. Puffer jackets are essentially fashion bubble wrap. Babes, read a Vogue. The police ultimately chased and then arrested and tased Celestine before finding a weapon in his pants leg, only for the DA to ultimately drop all charges. But because he happened to be out on parole, he wasn't allowed to make bail and had to sit in jail for a year. And it's worth noting that police aren't just limited to using their own surveillance cameras. Increasingly, they're able to use those owned by private businesses or homeowners. There are an estimated 85 million in this country, and police now routinely request access to them. In fact, here is an ad from one company that facilitates that, Fusus, explaining to businesses how it works.
Setting up Fusus is fast, requires minimal hardware, and has no activation fees. In an investigation, police can automatically request footage from all nearby businesses at the click of a button. And camera owners can securely share recorded as well as live video feeds to aid in the investigation.
Yeah, it's that easy. With the click of a button, police can get access to hours of private security footage. Look, technology has made a lot of things easy to do with the click of a button, like order medicine, pay bills, or buy this inexplicable wall decal of a senior woman with asthma, or one of that same woman wielding a frying pan as a weapon, or a decal of Dr. Phil as an M&M. Add all three to your cart, and now you've got a home worthy of Architectural Digest. Technology is amazing, but it does feel like turning on the panopticon should be a bit harder than that. And it doesn't stop there. Fusus has gone so far as developing technology that allows Amazon's Ring doorbells to live stream straight to police crime centres, which is a pretty wild use of something that I mainly associate with bringing us videos of animals who just want to come inside. Just for a minute, it's cold out here and you've got treats in there. And while some businesses or homeowners might want to do that, in other places, they're not given much of a choice. Rialto, California, has made starting a business contingent on signing up with Fusus, with permits containing language like the security cameras shall be accessible to the Rialto Police Department through Fusus. And come on! Opening a small business is already hard enough. There's cash flow issues, hiring and firing, and, of course, dealing with Yelp reviews that say, woman at the front desk had a weird eye, scared my son, he is 9! But now, you also have to decide if opening your nail salon is worth being a narc on passers-by. But it's not just cameras being dotted all over the place, it's also microphones, like the ones operated by a company called ShotSpotter. It's used in over 200 jurisdictions. The way ShotSpotter works is it basically sets up microphones all over a city which alert police if they sense a loud noise that could be a gunshot. And some places treat ShotSpotter as highly reliable. In Houston, their department doesn't dispatch officers for all 911 calls about gunfire, but they treat every ShotSpotter alert as a top priority report. One officer even said, no matter what other call you're on, if a ShotSpotter alert drops, you go. Unfortunately, the technology seems nowhere near as good as you'd want it to be for that kind of response. An AP investigation found the systems can miss live gunfire right under its microphones or misclassify the sounds of fireworks as gunshots, while other reportings found ShotSpotter being activated by cars backfiring or even people using a nail gun, which is not good. You don't want hyped-up cops showing up weapons drawn because Dad finally got around to putting up the Christmas lights. And there have been cases of people searched and arrested for things like drug possession simply because ShotSpotter sent police to their location. So its inaccuracy can cause real problems. And the evidence it actually prevents crime is scant. In fact, when a local news team in Minneapolis looked into nearly 2 years' worth of results from its ShotSpotter system, the results were dire.
The data reveals during that time, MPD responded to ShotSpotter activations roughly 8,500 times. The data also shows about 80% of the time, officers documented no evidence of a gun-related crime, and only 32 activations total led to an arrest. That's less than 1% of the time.
That percentage there is that's insane. That's crazy.
He's right. It is crazy, and while this is not the point, I do think that man should be asked for comment on literally every news story. Speaker of the House Mike Johnson and his son monitor each other's porn intake.
That's crazy.
It is. Reba McEntire partnered with 40 farms to make corn mazes out of her face.
That's crazy.
I agree. 500,000 Italians seek exorcisms every year.
That percentage there is that's insane. That's crazy.
Yeah, my thoughts exactly. The point is, it sure seems like a technology this flawed shouldn't be dispatching police all over a city. And there is a similar issue with our next technology, automated license plate readers, or ALPRs. You've probably seen them by the side of the road, and cops will claim that they're a way to find stolen cars or those engaged in suspicious activity. The most popular are made by a company called Flock, and here is how they work.
Flock license plate readers don't just scan tags looking for stolen cars or vehicles on a hot list. The cameras take a photo of every car that passes, stamped with the precise time and location. The more cameras you pass, the clearer the picture of your movements. All of that data is saved in a database for 30 days, shared with connected police departments, allowing the government to go back in time to see where your car was and when. No warrant required, whether you're suspected of a crime or not.
OK, first, the Oscar for cinematography goes to that news piece. Drone shots, drive and talks, and a license plate close-up that'll make Tarantino bust both nuts? Call the Academy, the race is officially over. The point is, though, ALPRs will send up a lot of alerts, but unfortunately, many are false alarms. A randomised trial in Vallejo, California, found that 37% of all ALPR hits from fixed readers, like those attached to a streetlight, and 35% from mobile ALPRs, like those on cop cars, were misreads, which is an astonishingly high error rate, and that has had real consequences. Drivers have been repeatedly pulled over because a reader read the numbers on their plates wrong and tagged the vehicles as stolen. And some of those incidents have been truly hideous, like this one, where the police wrongly assumed that a car full of children was stolen. I'll warn you, this is hard to watch.
There's kids. It's these cries and screams Brittany Gilliam can't bring herself to relive.
That's terrifying. As a parent, that's heartbreaking.
Gilliam says she was searching for an open nail salon while sitting in a parking lot on Bucklet and Iliff in Aurora.
And she's screaming like, hey, auntie, the police.
When officers pulled up from behind.
They got their guns on us.
Gilliam was in the SUV with her 6-year-old daughter, 12-year-old sister, and 2 nieces, one 14, the other 17 years old. Police say a license plate reader alerted them the SUV was stolen.
Yeah, that is obviously terrible, and you already know that the police fucked up there, but I promise you are not ready for just how dumb that fuck-up was.
It turns out the stolen vehicle was actually a motorcycle, not Gilliam's SUV. Both vehicles share the plate number, but they were from different states.
Yeah, it was a motorcycle from another state. And the only thing that could be further from an SUV in Colorado would be if the licence actually belonged to a horse in Tennessee. And look, so far I've been focusing on when police technology gets stuff actively wrong, but it is worth remembering, even when these systems work perfectly, they can still be wildly invasive. Cameras and licence plate readers can track your movements wherever you go, which means they could find out if you, say, attended a protest or visited an abortion clinic. What's more, some companies, like Flock, make a feature out of the fact that their databases can be accessed by not just your local police, but also by those from other towns. And on top of all that, the federal government, meaning agencies like ICE and Border Patrol, has been known to use this network. Flock used to make arrangements with them to do so directly, but has since discontinued that, though the government is still able to use the network through local law enforcement. And while all of that is already comfortably bad enough, other technologies can be even more invasive. Take cell site simulators. They are devices with names like Stingray, and they allow cops to basically snoop on any phone that is near them.
Here's how it works. Cell phones are always trying to connect to nearby cell towers. A Stingray acts like a cell tower decoy. In what's called a man-in-the-middle attack, it tricks cell phones into thinking it's the nearest cell tower, phones connect to the Stingray, and police can access a range of personal information. But they don't just get intel on one phone. Every phone nearby is forced to divert to the Stingray. Calls are passed on to a real cell tower. Data scooped up stays with police.
Yeah, not great, right? I don't want a decoy cell tower getting any of my cell phone data, because what you do on your cell phone is your most personal of business. Your laptop, that is for buying plane tickets or making an Excel spreadsheet or browsing Civil War maps at the Library of Congress. You know, business shit. But your cell phone, that's for your most depraved behaviours. That's for sexting or a photo of a rash you want to show your doctor. It's for a phone note that just reads, "Young Gaddafi handsome," and some saved photos that emphatically answer that question again and again. Good Lord, those things need to go to the grave. Cell site simulators are a mass surveillance tool, and police can get a lot from them, from who you are calling to what you are texting. And the thing is, we don't know how often they do that, because generally law enforcement keeps a tight lid on its usage of these devices. In fact, for decades, the FBI's imposed secrecy obligations on state and local agencies, making them sign NDAs to prevent disclosure of any information about the devices to the public. And some police departments have found some pretty creative ways to hide their usage of these simulators. One in Florida advised officers, when using data obtained with them, to just describe it as information from a confidential source regarding the location of the suspect. And if you're thinking right now, well, maybe cops need devices like these for dire situations. What if there's a kidnapping or a bomb threat? You should know that is in no way all they get used for, because once cops get a new toy, they tend to find lots of excuses to use it. In at least one instance, Stingray tech was used to try and track down someone who stole 15 chicken wings and 3 sub sandwiches. And look, if you do that and you get away so effectively, police have to use a high-tech cell site simulator to find you, I think you've technically earned those fucking wings. And look, I know I've already thrown a lot of programmes at you tonight, but it's important to remember that they don't necessarily work in isolation. They can all feed into real-time crime centres like the ones you saw earlier. And some departments can then use all the data fed into them to engage in our final and maybe dumbest use of this tech. It's called predictive policing. Basically, using all that data to figure out which areas or individuals might be likely sources of crime. Think Minority Report, but instead of 3 pale orphans hanging out in goo, it's a bunch of bland-looking computers. Santa Cruz was one of the first big cities to launch predictive policing back in 2011 after developing it with the help of a local university, and it was promoted at the time like this.
Assistant professor of mathematics at the University of Santa Clara compares this kind of repetitive crime to earthquakes. The initial crime is the first tremor. Subsequent crimes follow like aftershocks.
What you might think of as after crimes, crimes triggered by an initial event. And what we can do with this model is create maps
of when and where police should direct their efforts.
We put that into the software program. It produces results in a very simple, easy-to-use Google Map format that we can then provide to the officers to tell them when and where to be on any given day.
OK, so first, before you say anything, I know, we all see it. No need to dwell on it. He is pure sex. Everyone agrees. End of story. Let it all out. There was a lot of hype around what Santa Cruz did at the time. Time magazine even called its predictive policing one of the 50 best new inventions of 2011, along with, and this is true, the Boeing 787. I guess it's true what they say. When you're at the top, there's simply no place to go but up in flames. And since then, other cities have rolled it out, including LA, Atlanta, Philadelphia, Chicago, and St. Louis. And some police departments have applied predictive policing with the exact opposite of a light touch. In Pasco County, Florida, the Sheriff's Department used it to compile a list of top 5 offenders and other suspects, many of them teenagers, based on arrest histories, unspecified intelligence, and arbitrary decisions by police analysts. Cops would then constantly visit and question those offenders about their activities, filing reports with details like, of one kid on their list, he has cut his hair, which is now short. He advised after the summer break he will be going to 9th grade. And he claims not to be associating with any of his old friends. And that is some crackerjack police work right there, buddy. This just in, local teen trying out new vibe this school year. And to see just how ridiculous this got, take the case of a kid called Rio, a 15-year-old boy who'd had one arrest for stealing motorised bicycles with a friend. He'd been placed on probation and had a probation officer checking up on him. But a year after he was sentenced, the computer inexplicably placed him on that top 5 list. And suddenly the police were constantly turning up to his house. The Tampa Bay Times actually pulled body camera footage of those interactions, and it is just relentless.
Why am I on the top 5? I have one charge. Yeah, it's not about your charge. It's about your. It goes deeper than that. It's about your network, who you associate with, your probation. Okay, I thought I only had one charge. You have a lot of involvements in history of people that commit crime.
Well, I'll give it the good old knowledge knock first on the off chance he's like sleeping here or some shit.
Sheriff's office.
You need Rio?
Yep.
She's nice, I promise.
Hey, bro.
Just come and say hi to Rio.
Is he home?
Yeah, no, he's with his mom.
You need Rio?
Yeah. Officer want to talk to you, Rio. We're just here to say hi to Rio. Hey, Rio, what's going on, buddy?
Mind we chit-chat for a couple minutes? Happy New Year.
2020. Yeah, happy 2020. It's going to be a great year. But wait, because it gets even dumber. Another time, the cops showed up and demanded to see Rio, and when his sister said he wasn't home because he was with his mom at her work, just watch as one deputy tried to bully his way into the house anyway.
So, you can let us walk through right now to make sure he's not here and in compliance with his probation, or I can stroke both of you guys a citation for not having numbers on the house. What do you want to do?
What does that even mean? Numbers on the house?
You don't have an address on either the mailbox or this house.
Is that a blackmail? Yes, we do. We have our address on our mailbox right now. On the other side.
That is pathetic. Usually when you hear the words cops and blackmail, you think of high-stakes situations like infiltrating drug rings or corrupt gambling schemes, not let me see your teen or I'll fine your mailbox to hell. And look, obviously cops can be arseholes no matter what, but it definitely doesn't help to have a computer program telling them you should absolutely go be an arsehole to this particular person because we think they're a criminal just waiting to happen. And it's worth pointing out that a lot of the technologies you've seen tonight, like ShotSpotter and license plate readers, are disproportionately used in communities of colour. And cameras are often used in tandem with facial recognition software, which, as we have discussed before, tends to misidentify suspects far more often based on race. So there is already racial bias built into many of these technologies. And when you start feeding them into predictive policing, that only gets compounded. And it frankly says something that the place that started predictive policing, Santa Cruz, actually backed away from it a few years ago for exactly those reasons, as the police chief there explained.
The people who created it weren't inherently racist, but the effect of it can be racist, and that's what we were concerned about. Because if you're putting police officers in a location where they're likely to engage people in a negative way, then that becomes the problem.
Right. And I know he's being very careful there, but luckily I can be a bit more blunt. The people who created predictive policing that incorporated racist police practices and data were probably inherently racist. A lot of people are, either knowingly or not. And the effect is definitely racist. It's just one of many uncomfortable truths we should probably all be more upfront about, along with death comes for all of us, people lie, and unfortunately, the goal of most dating reality shows isn't to find love, is to get enough Instagram followers so that you can get a couple of brand deals and maybe one day start a skincare company. It's just a regrettable fact. And those who push all these tools will insist that the technology isn't the problem here, it's how it gets used. Flock, which makes many of those ALPRs I showed you earlier, has been branching out into selling cameras and real-time crime centres to local departments. And here is how a segment on one of them dealt with citizens' concerns.
Those eyes in the sky and on the roads raise concerns over privacy. The ACLU has raised concerns with Flock's surveillance network, but Flock says it's all about how you use it.
As long as departments hire ethical people, write sound policy, and have oversight on those policies, then you can start to ensure that this is all used ethically.
OK, first, enough with the beard, we get it. But second, oh, it's that easy, is it? Just hire ethical people, write sound policy and have oversight and it will all be fine. My brother in Christ, have you, and this is a technical term, looked around recently? Because as nice as that sounds, the fact is, departments don't necessarily do any of those things. There have now been many stories from around the country of police officers accused of using ALPR databases to stalk and harass women. As for oversight, well, Flock claims that every search request is logged for accountability purposes. When this man in Georgia tried to find out who'd accessed the cameras near his home, his city told him it would cost him $500,000 to fulfill his request, which is clearly crazy. Now, they did give him a much more limited data set, but interestingly, he still found enough troubling new information in that to then take it to a city council meeting.
Hunyar went to city council with the limited Flock audit records Dunwoody gave him.
Nobody from Flock Safety is accessing or monitoring your footage. Once again, I have evidence of Flock employees looking at parks, schools, playgrounds.
The audit logs also showed Flock executives watching private cameras inside the city's Jewish Community Center, which the mayor confirmed.
Members of the Flock sales team were using it as a demonstration.
OK, hold on, because there is just a cascading set of yikes there. First, you get the news that it's not just cops and security guards. Flock employees are watching these cameras too. Then you get to parks, schools, playgrounds, and a scrolling list of cameras with labels like gymnastics and gymnastics side view. Then you learn that the Jewish Community Centre, and finally that it was for a sales demonstration. What was even the pitch there? Ever wonder what your Jewish neighbours were up to but didn't feel like going over there to ask? Ever wonder what they look like doing yoga? Well, now you don't have to. Why knock when you can flock? And when a reporter asked a Flock spokesperson about that, it didn't go great.
Why didn't Flock find those vulnerabilities?
Why did it take a citizen? Sorry, go ahead.
We actually can't talk about the JCC by name. So we can talk about something else there.
Well, why can't you talk about the JCC?
Because we worked with their team and we're not going to talk about that.
A Flock PR person stopped our interview twice when we tried to ask about Flock employees viewing cameras inside the Jewish Community Center.
Did the people in those videos give permission to be part of a demo?
We're not going to answer questions about the JCC. We're not answer questions about JCC. But any partnership goes...
I have to ask the question however you guys want to answer it. And you want to say you can't answer it, you can't answer it. That's fine. But I have to ask the question. I can't, it's not a PR video. This isn't like a promotional video. I mean, this is...
I think it's pretty clear it's not a PR video. We're good, though.
Yeah, I'm not sure you're quite as good as you think you are there. And I know it is hard for you to deal with cameras that you don't control, but what did you think that news crew were going to do there? Leave that exchange out? News stations fucking love it when someone tries to stop an interview. All you've really done there is manage to look suspicious and to get them to break out the good subtitles. The fact is, it currently takes far too much pressure to expose what systems cities are using and how they are using them. In fact, remember how I mentioned that Rialto, California requires new businesses to hook their security cameras up to Fusus? Well, 3 years ago, we filed a narrow public records request with their police department asking for emails in which Fusus was discussed. They told us they didn't have any, which seemed implausible. So we filed a much broader request, and over the next 2 years, they sent us 28 pages, which still didn't seem like all the material they probably had. So last February, we said, fuck it, send us an export of your whole log database for Fusus, showing us every time your officers peeked at a privately owned camera. And we asked for it as a searchable digital file, as the law requires. But instead, what they did was send us a 30,413-page PDF. To give you a sense of just how massive that is, if you printed it out, it is all of this shit right here, which was clearly pretty irritating because it's a huge amount of information that is impossible to look through quickly. Now, thankfully, we managed to convert it into a searchable file, and in doing so, we found some things that it does feel the people of Rialto should probably know about. For instance, this is just all the times police there access cameras at fast food places. And you should know, some of those cameras are inside the restaurant in areas only employees can access. For instance, it seems they can check in on the grill at the local Wiener Schnitzel anytime they want. And if you work at the Chick-fil-A there, just know that on one Tuesday afternoon, Rialto had 5 of your interior cameras open for 2 hours straight. The front counter, the drive-through register, the multi-purpose room, the manager's station, and the office, which feels a little weird to me, as to the fact that they access cameras at the Rialto Days Inn for hundreds of hours, including the one facing the pool. And come on, getting secretly watched in your swimsuit is not supposed to be one of the perks of staying at a Days Inn. You are supposed to get a room that is fine, a bed that will do, and a front desk that occasionally has an employee behind it. That is the Days Inn promise. And I should say, the Rialto PD insists some of those hits are because they were watching a whole area and scooping up all the cameras, or that they'd left a set of cameras on in the background at their office. But that is just not as reassuring as I think they want it to sound. Look, it sure seems to me like these surveillance tools have much bigger flaws than the people both selling and using them are comfortable admitting, because time and again, the pattern when they get rolled out is they get deployed in secret and then publicly presented in the most positive light, and only much later do we start to fully understand the damage they can do. Basically, the public conversation comes last, not first. And the good news is, due in part to the vast overreach of the current administration, we are now finally starting to have those conversations. Around the country, people are showing up to demand their cities and towns end contracts with companies like Flock, including a man in Seattle who did so while dressed as an ALPR. And while I admire his commitment to the cause, he does look more like what would happen if a Pixar dad fucks the Pixar lamp, because I think we'd all agree this is what would happen there. But it is worth remembering, Flock cameras are just one part of a vast ecosystem here, and even if your town gets rid of them, cops might still be looking at cameras in private businesses, or using stingrays, or employing any of the other technologies you've seen tonight. If you now want to know what's being used in your town, you can check out resources like the EFF's Atlas of Surveillance, which catalogues each of the technologies used in your area. And I'll warn you, the answer probably isn't going to make you happy. Now, as for what to do about all this, experts say that to the extent we use any of these technologies at all, we at the very least need to make sure that they are thoroughly vetted and debated before installation, and mandate audits focused on civil rights, civil liberties, privacy and racial justice risks to be conducted both before and after a technology is adopted. And that really doesn't seem like too much to ask, because the very fact that we don't already currently have all those requirements in place is, what is the best phrase for me to use here?
That's insane. That's crazy.
Yeah, it really is. That's our show. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you next week. Good night.